Yakub Memon convicted and hanged. 2022, Yakub's grave beautified. Outrage over glorification of terrorist. Political showdown over Yakub's grave.
The BJP blames the Aghadi Sarkar. The Aghadi and the Shiv Sena blame the BJP. But who beautified the grave of convicted terrorist Yakub Memon, convicted for the Mumbai blasts of 1993 in which 257 people were killed? The grave was decorated with granite, with marble, with LED lights, making it a site of respect rather than the final resting place of a dreaded convicted terrorist who killed so many Indians. I'm Shiv Aroor and I'm going to answer some of those questions here on 5 Live with an exclusive news break. First, the headlines. Bangalore University students protest against construction of temple on their campus, urge authorities to build a library instead. After 2-year-long standoff, a big breakthrough at the line of actual control in Ladakh, India-China disengagement at the friction point called Gogra Hot Springs begins. National Green Tribunal orders demolition of Goa shack Curlies for violating coastal zone norms. Sonali Phogat, the BJP leader, partied at this very shack before her death. Supreme Court grants bail to Kerala journalist Siddique Kappan after 2 years on condition that he cannot leave Delhi for 6 months. Queen Elizabeth II passes away at the age of 96, crowned in 1953. She was the longest reigning monarch, dies after a reign of 69 years. Her son Charles to be King Charles III. And we're starting with some breaking news here on 5 Live. The security breach at Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma's rally in Hyderabad. A TRS worker, Telangana Rashtra Samiti, which is the ruling party of Telangana, a TRS worker tried to confront Himanta Biswa Sarma on stage and tried to dismantle his microphone, leading to a security escalation and a bit of a ruckus. The man was whisked away by security personnel. Let's take a look at that quick sequence. Himanta Biswa Sarma in Telangana to address a BJP rally and was apparently heckled by a TRS worker who tried to snatch his mic. Listen in. So you can see very clearly just before Himanta Biswa Sarma takes the mic, a TRS worker who's wearing that pink shawl. Pink is the TRS election party color. And you can see him trying to remove the mic and then quickly being whisked away by the Assam Chief Minister's security. All of this happening in Hyderabad during this BJP rally, being seen as a security breach because nobody else is on that allowed on that stage. The Assam Chief Minister is a security protectee as well, and an unauthorized person made his way onto stage to remove that mic and perhaps heckle or attack Himanta Biswa Sarma in some way. He's been taken away. He apparently belongs to the ruling TRS in Telangana. And that is heated election season for you, and that's the way it goes, especially at a time when the BJP is raising temperatures and aggression, politically speaking, in Telangana. Now shifting focus to our big spotlight story of the day, the beautification of a terrorist's grave in Mumbai, a city that has seen terror attack after terror attack, especially this one. This is the grave of Yakub Memon, a terrorist who was hanged to death in 2015 for his role in the 1993 Bombay blasts. The BJP has alleged that the work, the beautification of this man's grave, was undertaken under Uddhav Thackeray's Maha Aghadi Sarkar. Maharashtra's current Chief Minister Eknath Shinde has meanwhile ordered a probe calling the entire beautification totally shameful. Take a look.
Yakub Memon's beautified grave in South Mumbai has triggered raging politics around it. 7 years after terrorist Yakub Memon was hanged to death in the 1993 Mumbai blast case, it was recently spotted that his grave has got a makeover with a marble boundary and LED lights. The person who beautified Yakub's grave, Shoaib Khatib, is a trustee of Bada Kabristan. Khatib can be seen with NCP Neta Nawab Malik and Congress Neta Aslam Sheikh, both of whom served as ministers when the Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi was in power. Former Juma Masjid trustee Zazil has even claimed to have received a threat call from Tiger Memon's close aide and relative Rauf Memon. Maharashtra Chief Minister Eknath Shinde has vowed strict action against those involved in beautification of a terrorist's grave.
इस तरह वो कंट्रोवर्सी हुआ था याकूब मेमन की कब्र को लेकर, उसमें क्या जांच के आदेश दिए गए हैं? किस तरह के
जांच के आदेश दिए हुए हैं और कार्रवाई हो रही है। आपने देखी है, कार्रवाई शुरू है।
जो ट्रस्ट के लोग हैं उनसे भी क्या पूछताछ होगी सर?
जांच के बाद सब हो जाएगा, जांच होने दो। सर बीजेपी ने गलत हुआ है उसके ऊपर कार्रवाई हो जाएगी।
These damning pictures have put the Aghadi in the dock once again. With Divyesh Singh in Mumbai, Bureau Report, India Today.
So let me quickly tell you about the timeline of events so you, the viewer, is fully in the picture of the beautification of this grave. July 30th, 2015, Mumbai blast convict Yakub Memon, the terrorist, is hanged in Nagpur and he is buried. His body is given to his family and he is buried at the Marine Lines Bada Kabristan in Mumbai. September 2022, the beautification of Yakub's grave comes to attention. The Maharashtra government orders a probe into this entire matter. The BJP alleges that this beautification of a terrorist's grave happened under the Uddhav Thackeray government. So that's where things stand. He was hanged in 2015, body was handed over, buried in Mumbai, and now the beautification of the grave comes to light. Joining us live, Divyesh Singh with me from Mumbai, Gaurav Sawant with me from Delhi, both looking at all aspects of this story. Divyesh, there's a crossfire of blame taking place between the BJP and the Shiv Sena principally. Are we anywhere closer, at understanding who ordered the beautification of the grave or who allowed it? Because there are some very damning images that have come out, including a picture of the Kabristan trustee with Aghadi ministers like Nawab Malik and Aslam Sheikh. There are also pictures of Kishori Pednekar, former mayor of Mumbai, Shiv Sena leader, with a cousin of Yakub Memon as well. So the BJP is saying that it was appeasement, proximity to the Yakub Memon family that basically meant that the Aghadi Sarkar tacitly approved the beautification of Yakub Memon's grave. What's the truth, Divyesh?
Well, Shiv, former trustees of the cemetery, former trustees of the Bada Kabristan have alleged that the Memon family had been demanding that the area near the grave on which the grave was and some more area near it, that boundary be created over there, it be beautified and it be given permanently to the Memon family. But former trustees had denied, and that is why Rauf Memon, cousin of Yakub Memon, had threatened former trustees, on following which the complaint was also given to the Mumbai Police Commissioner in the year 2020. After that, Shoaib Khatib, who is now the trustee of Bada Kabristan, this grave of Yakub Memon, it's beautified, boundary, a small wall is put up, it is decorated with tiles, and then LED lights are put up, halogen lamps are put up, and this happens when Shoaib Khatib is the trustee. So it indicates that Shoaib Khatib indeed was privy to the permission given to the Memon family for beautification of this grave or area near it. They are trying to create a tomb for Yakub Memon at the place where he was buried. And other than that, there are other trustees who are also under investigation presently. A DCP level inquiry has been ordered, and very soon the inquiry will be completed, following which, as the CM Eknath Shinde has assured, action will be taken against those guilty.
You know, Gaurav, the Aghadi, the Shiv Sena, especially Aditya Thackeray, who we've, nobody has seen in a long time, has come out in public to defend the allegations that the BJP has made. Aditya Thackeray says it was BJP's Devendra Fadnavis as Chief Minister who basically permitted the body of a terrorist being given back to the family. But cut forward many years, you see these pictures of Nawab Malik, Aslam Sheikh, etc. with the Bada Kabristan trustee. You see Kishori Pednekar, with the cousin of Yakub Memon, who apparently issued threats to the, to the Bada Kabristan trust as well, to allow these special favors for the grave of a terrorist. Is it possible that all these things could have happened without Uddhav Thackeray's knowledge, Gaurav?
Shiv, this is extremely disturbing. This is very worrying for two reasons. One, there is a terrorist sitting in Pakistan who's actually threatening people in India.
Yeah.
And yet, a relative of that terrorist is given gravesite that's perhaps on its way to becoming a mazar. How damaging and scary is this in a city like Mumbai, India's maximum city? Remember, these are terrorists who are responsible for the 1993 Mumbai blast, 12 serial blasts in Mumbai, 257 people killed, more than 700 people injured. These were the men who were responsible. Yakub Memon, Tiger Memon, Dawood Ibrahim. There is this Tiger Memon is still calling up people in India and threatening them, staking place for a mazar for his brother, and then marble is coming up and LED lights are coming up. This is distressing, this is shocking, and this is extremely alarming. Whichever administration permitted a terrorist to get land in our country, because like the United States, rules of engagement need to be very clear. A terrorist caught or killed, Shiv must get the Osama bin Laden treatment. You bury them at sea, or you burn their bodies if terror has no religion. Point one. Point two, how can land be given and how can a mazar come up there? It's shocking. It's appalling. Whoever is responsible has let the nation down.
They've let the nation down. They are enemies of the country. Let me, go ahead out on a limb and say they are enemies of the country, given that the beautification of a grave that they have approved is the grave of a man who was convicted for the killing of 257 people in that terrorist attack. So let nobody ever forget that. We live in a day and age when the word anti-national is abused and manipulated by political parties. But whoever has approved this beautification is an anti-national. Let me go ahead and say it here on India Today. Thanks, Divyesh. Thanks, Gaurav, for getting us that. Joining us now is Zazil Navrange. He's a former trustee of the Bada Kabristan where Yakub Memon is buried. Zazil bhai, आपका स्वागत है. मेरा पहला सवाल आपसे, आप पहले ट्रस्टी रह चुके हैं बड़ा कब्रिस्तान के. याकूब मेमन का ग्रेव का मेकओवर किसने किया है, किसकी निगरानी में हुआ है
ये? ट्रस्टी हमारा 2016 में इलेक्ट हुआ था. दिसंबर 2016 में इलेक्टेड होकर जो है वो ट्रस्ट में आया था. उस वक्त तक जो है उसके अंदर कोई रिटिफिकेशन नहीं था. इवन मैं जब 2020 तक वहां पर था, जो एफआईआर होने से पहले, वहां तक की कोई विटिफिकेशन नहीं था. अभी भी जो है ये ट्रस्टी, जो प्रेजेंट ट्रस्टी जो है वो उनके अंडर पे ये विटिफिकेशन हुआ है.
वो करंट कब्रिस्तान ट्रस्टी का फोटो अघाड़ी नेताओं के साथ सामने आया है. जजील भाई, क्या ये डिसीजन में पॉलिटिशियंस भी इन्वॉल्व थे, नेता लोग भी इन्वॉल्व थे ये डिसीजन में?
नहीं सर, इस बारे में मेरे को जानकारी नहीं है, पॉलिटिकल इन्वॉल्व है या नहीं इन्वॉल्व है, इस बारे में मेरे को नॉलेज नहीं है। अभी बीच में लॉकडाउन के टाइम पे बहुत सारे जो है पॉलिटिशियन मस्जिद में आते थे, तो इनके साथ में इन्फ्लुएंस है या नहीं है वो उस बारे में वो आप उनसे पूछिए। हाँ, इतना है कि मुझ पे एफआईआर होने के लिए बहुत सारे उनका अपने पावर लगा है और मुझ पे झूठी एफआईआर की गई।
लेकिन ये जो पॉलिटिकल आरोपों को लेकर आपको क्या कहना है? क्योंकि बीजेपी का कहना है कि अघाड़ी सरकार ने अप्रूव किया है, अघाड़ी सरकार का कहना है कि बीजेपी ने याकूब मेमन का बॉडी उनकी फैमिली को दे दिया था एग्जीक्यूशन के बाद। तो ये क्रॉसफायर के को लेकर आप क्या कहेंगे?
सर, पॉलिटिक्स के बारे में मैं कुछ नहीं बोलना चाहूंगा, क्योंकि मुझको इस बारे में जानकारी नहीं है कि कौन से पॉलिटिशियन ने इसके ऊपर प्रेशर लगा के चीजें किया। मेरे को इस बारे में नॉलेज नहीं है। वो तो आप उस ट्रस्टी से पूछ सकते हैं कि आपने किसके प्रेशर में चीजों को किया।
जजील, आपने एक एफआईआर भी दर्ज किया था आपको अंडरवर्ल्ड से थ्रेट आया था, उसके बारे में बताइए, कहां से आया था?
मैंने एफआईआर नहीं एनसी की थी। जब वो मेरे पास में अप्रोच हुए थे, उसके बाद में मैंने उस कबर को जो है ब्यूटिफिकेशन और पक्की बनाने के वास्ते जो डिनाई किया था, जब वो मुझसे रसीद मांग रहे थे तो उस पे हमने डिनाई किया था। तो डिनाई करने के बाद में मुझको धमकी देते थे। धमकी देने के बाद में मैंने एलटी मार्ग पुलिस स्टेशन, एटीएस ऑफिस और दूसरी जो दीगर कंप्लेंट होती है, मैंने उस जगह पे कंप्लेन किया था। ये मेरे कंप्लेंट लेटर है जो आप शायद अपने पीडी के इसमें लाइव दे सकते हैं। और एक मुमरा पुलिस स्टेशन के अंदर मैंने एक एनसी की थी क्या मुझको जो है वो ऐसा इस तरीके से डिटेन किया जाता है। तो उसके बाद में कोई रिप्लाई नहीं आया। और फिर बाद में उनका मेन इंटेंशन ये था, जो दूसरे ट्रस्टियों से मिलकर, कि आप इन ट्रस्टियों को हटा दो, हम आपको जो है ये ब्यूटिफिकेशन करके पक्का करने के वास्ते देंगे। इन्होंने हमारे को ट्रस्ट से हटा दिया, तो फिर हम लोग का कोई इन्वॉल्व नहीं हुआ, तो हम लोग इसके ऊपर खामोश हो गए।
Zazil Navrangi, thank you very much for speaking to India today. A high-level police inquiry has been ordered on the back of India Today's expose on the beautification of Yakub Memon's grave. We'll have to see what the truth is. There are many indicators, many alarm bells ringing, a lot of crossfire and blame game between the BJP and the Shiv Sena. But who is that one person or group of people who basically announced or approved that this grave would be permitted to be beautified in this absolutely sickening manner is a question that we will continue to track very, very closely. Now, how angry should we be, friends, over the cosmetic beautification and LED lights that have been added to the grave of Yakub Memon, a terrorist involved in the 1993 Bombay blast that killed 257 people and destroyed hundreds of families? They're still grieving. How angry should you and I be that a man tried and convicted as a terrorist and hanged as per Indian law now has a grave that is a site of tribute and respect? How angry are you when you hear the BJP accusing Uddhav-Thackeray of quietly allowing the beautification of a terrorist's grave to placate some of his Zabardasti fellow travelers in the erstwhile Aghadi government, including a congressman who fought officially for the mercy of terrorist Yakub Memon? How angry are you that Aditya Thackeray steps out to defend the Aghadi and points to the fact that it was a BJP government in Maharashtra under Devendra Fadnavis that had decided to give the body of terrorist Yakub Memon back to the family after his hanging in Nagpur? How angry are you that not one of the 257 victims' families from the Bombay blasts of 1993 was consulted about the man responsible for their grief and misery being given a dignified burial? How angry are you that whether it is trustees of the Qabristan or governments with a chronic affinity for appeasement, the truth is the damage has been done, hasn't it? And for whatever period of time, the grave of Yakub Memon was beautified, elevated, and worshipped. We can sit here and get misty-eyed about a family that deserved the right to give even a terrorist a dignified burial. Or we can think about the 257 families that didn't get that chance, since there was nothing left of most of Yakub Memon's victims. We can sit here and remind ourselves that the graves of terrorists are projected as martyrdom sites by countries like Pakistan, a country, remember, which is still home to blast mastermind Dawood Ibrahim. We can remind ourselves that when it comes to terror, even a shred of appeasement, sentiment or emotion is a dangerous thing, because as is clear from Yakub Memon's grave, that very weakness will be grabbed and twisted by spineless netas. I understand your anger about this story and I share your rage. Sometimes this anger feels useless, doesn't it? But when it comes to terrorists, let's ensure we tell whichever government comes or goes that there should be no graves, no vague burial sites, no place where people can say, yes, this is where Yakub Memon lies. When terrorists are gone, they must be erased from the face of the earth, nothing left. Let that be the message. No compromise, no exceptions. It's time on this day to bid adieu to Ganpati for the year. Ganesh Utsav festivities culminate today with the grand Visarjan, and boy, what a beautiful image it is. Mumbai's famous Lal Bagh Raja being carried through the city's streets with chants of Ganpati Bappa Morya reverberating through the air. Enjoy these pictures. We'll be right back.
Everyone's busy finding what's trending. You're busy finding out why. India Today, for those who research before reacting. Download the India Today app now.
Non, c'était bien, c'était excitant. Tu voyais que les gens étaient passionnés, ils avaient leur bateau de districts différents, fait que c'était vraiment intéressant. Puis je pense que c'est la première fois depuis 3 ans aussi que ça a lieu. Fait que tu sentais un peu là, les gens qui coursaient, l'émotion puis l'excitation.
Sono a Venezia, prima volta alla regata storica. Di solito la evitavo per timore di assembramenti, folla. Ne valse la pena. Bellissimo, bellissima giornata di sole. Abbiamo fatto video e foto, bellissimo.
Ever heard of zombie fires? No, I'm not talking about flesh-eating maniacs. This is a rare phenomenon that is also known as overwintering fires. This occurs mostly in countries like Russia, Canada and Alaska. So what are zombie fires really? Peat fires burn underground and are very difficult to detect. They're also known as zombie fires as they can burn underground and reignite weeks or months later. Climate change is drying peatlands and making them more susceptible to fire. During a fire, burnt trees fall to the ground, igniting the flammable peat in the soil. The embers can continue to burn more than a meter underground for weeks or months, even in winter in certain regions of the world. The embers are fed by peat, a spongy material rich in carbon formed by decomposition of organic matter. They burn underground and return to the surface where in dry and windy conditions they can start a new fire.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
You see this glazed donut? It's obviously glazed, glowing and glistening, but not greasy. Do you wish for your skin to look like that without it looking greasy? You can now achieve the ultimate glazed donut skin by following a skincare routine that is gold standard for skincare. Your skin can now look glazed, glowing, glistening without looking greasy. This trend has taken social media by storm and we are not complaining. Just look at these influencers with glazed donut skin. They look fresh, well hydrated, look like spring impersonated. Here are some simple easy steps that can help you achieve this look. Firstly, cleanse the skin with a non-irritating face wash. Second, you need to use a hydrating serum that contains hyaluronic acid. Will even help you plump your skin up to get that fresh look. Thirdly, make your skin's moisture barrier intact. Use a moisturizer even if you have oily skin. A rich moisturizer if your skin is on the drier side. Just make sure the products are non-comedogenic in nature. If you don't look hydrated and like a glazed donut, then you're probably not doing the right thing. Lastly, always wear sunscreen before stepping out. Come rain, snow, hell or high water. Say it again with us. I will always wear sunscreen before stepping out. And voila, here is your glazed donut look. Of course, eating well, sleeping well will help you a lot. And some of our Indian influencers are now stamping this trend.
Well, unfortunately, I've always had troubled skin, acne prone, oily, all the issues in the world. Imagine them, I have them. But then, of course, a good skincare regime is very important to ensure that you get that glazed donut-like effect. The glazed skin trend that is actually going viral on Instagram and all over the internet, which is all about well-nourished, well-moisturized, glowing skin. That is not just makeup, but actually is a glow from within.
Yeah, I guess you just have to be mindful about what you eat and you drink your water, you hydrate yourself, moisturize your skin, use your sunscreen, and I think you're good to go. Yeah.
We anticipate this glazed donut skin is here to stay, especially since it builds on popular skincare principles like glass skin and slugging. Simply put, the glazed donut face reminds us that glowing, almost reflective skin is the skin of the moment. Let's all now thank Hailey Bieber for this rather delicious trend. With inputs from Riya Modi, Chaiti Narula for India Today.
Hello and welcome. I'm Jonathan Gilbert, reporting from Buckingham Palace in London. Queen Elizabeth II, the longest reigning monarch in British history, is no more. She passed away aged 96 at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. Her eldest son, Charles, now King Charles III, expressed his grief and mourning and that of his entire family. The Queen's body will return shortly to London, where it will lie in state, initiating a 10-day period of mourning.
Elizabeth II, the longest-serving monarch, has passed away at the age of 96. The Queen breathed her last in her country residence, the Balmoral Castle in Scotland, surrounded by her family members. Prince William and Kate, Prince Charles and Camilla rushed to Balmoral Castle after doctors had expressed their concern over the Queen's deteriorating health. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle too rushed to Balmoral when Queen Elizabeth II was placed under medical supervision. The newly chosen Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Liz Truss, was one of the first to be informed of the monarch's passing, as is protocol. The message was also relayed to the public by Buckingham Palace, and flags were brought to half-mast within 10 minutes of the news. A 10-day mourning period is in effect now in the United Kingdom. On the 5th day, the Queen will lie in state for 3 days as members of the public visit to see her coffin. It is on the final day that the Queen's funeral will be held at Westminster Abbey as the world pays tribute to a monarch who dedicated her entire life to serving the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. The world is in mourning today. Long live the Queen. Bureau Report, India Today.
And joining me now is the former External Affairs Minister, Mr. Natwar Singh, who knew Queen Elizabeth rather well. I appreciate you joining us, Natwar Singh. Recall to us your memories of Queen Elizabeth as you knew her, your favorite memory of Queen Elizabeth.
Let me first begin by saying that at the moment there is a vacuum in the United Kingdom because His Majesty, the King who has been taken over as King only 24 hours ago, and the Prime Minister is in office for less than a week. They don't know each other. They have got to know each other well, understand the problems that are facing the United Kingdom, get to know what is happening in the world. They must get to know the world leaders, Commonwealth leaders, and that's a serious problem. Now, with regard to my association with late Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, I will tell you a story. In 1983, Her Majesty, the Queen and her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, came to Delhi. The Member of Parliament, H.N. Bahuguna, wrote a letter to Srimati Indira Gandhi saying that he had heard that the Queen was going to have an investiture in Rashtrapati Bhavan for giving the Order of Merit to Mother Teresa. The Order of Merit is confined to 24 individuals in the United Kingdom. Now, we don't allow anyone else besides the President of India to have an investiture in the Rashtrapati Bhavan. So, the Prime Minister sent for me and he said, please find out from Rashtrapati Bhavan if what we have heard and what Shri Bahuguna has written to me is correct. Well, I inquired and the answer was yes. The Queen was indeed having an investiture in Rashtrapati Bhavan. So the Prime Minister said, go and see Mrs. Thatcher and convey to her that this is not our tradition, that anybody else besides the President of India can hold an investiture in Rashtrapati Bhavan. So I went to Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. Her answer was that, it's going to be very difficult. The Queen has been informed, the invitations have gone out. I said, yes, they have, but they have gone out on the stationery of Buckingham Palace, which again is not acceptable. She said, but if the Queen is to be told to shift somewhere else, she will be inconvenienced. So I went back to the Prime Minister and I told her what Mrs. Thatcher had told me. So the Prime Minister thought about 30 seconds and said, Natwar, you go back to Mrs. Thatcher and tell her from me that if the investiture takes place, questions will be asked in Parliament and the Queen's name will be dragged in. So I conveyed this to Mrs. Thatcher, and there was no investiture.
Queen Elizabeth, who marked 70 years on the throne just this year, was the longest-serving monarch in British history. She surpassed even her great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, who herself reigned for 63 and a half years. Here's a look at the life and times of Elizabeth.
The death of Queen Elizabeth II has been announced, bringing to an end the longest reign of any British monarch. Born on April 21st, 1926, the princess had never expected to ascend to the throne. But after her uncle, King Edward VIII, abdicated in 1936, the crown passed to her father, George VI.
My whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and to the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong.
Tragic news. She was just 25 when she became Queen Elizabeth II in 1952 on the death of her father.
And following were the heavily veiled, grieving figures.
She was crowned the next year at Westminster Abbey. Winston Churchill was the first of her 15 prime ministers, and during her 70-year reign, there were 14 US presidents. The young Queen Elizabeth spent much of the early years saying farewell to the British Empire amassed by her forebears, from Kenya to Hong Kong to Barbados. However, she remained the monarch of 15 countries and head of the Commonwealth. Her own personal union to Prince Philip stayed solid for 74 years until his death in April 2021. The couple had 4 children, beginning with Charles, who was born in 1948 and who now succeeds her to the throne. The Queen's life became one of public duty, attending thousands of official engagements across the globe. She was loved and respected by many. Millions turned out to celebrate her 70th year on the throne in June 2022. The Queen herself had to step back from some of the partying due to recurring health problems. Commentators agreed that she came across as a dignified, down-to-earth and witty woman. Critics said she was too solemn and distant, a woman recognised by millions but known by hardly anyone. Away from her public duties, horse racing and her beloved corgis were lifelong passions, as was the outdoors, like her estate at Balmoral in Scotland, where she was more at home in tweeds than tiaras.
1992.
Her reign was rarely plain sailing. The 40th anniversary of her accession was a year that she famously described as one of disaster and misfortune.
It has turned out to be an annus horribilis.
3 of her 4 children's marriages had failed, and there was a major fire at her Windsor Castle royal residence. The death of Charles's ex-wife, Princess Diana, in 1997 was even more harmful to the family's public prestige.
As your queen and as a grandmother, I say from my heart, first, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself. She was an exceptional and gifted human being.
In years later, some of the damage was repaired by events like the marriage of her grandson William to commoner Kate Middleton in 2011, watched by billions around the world. But with Queen Elizabeth's death, the monarchy's future is likely to face scrutiny like never before. Polls suggest Charles will be a far less popular British monarch. And there are other challenges. Prince Harry and his American wife Meghan giving up their royal duties amid accusations of racism has robbed the institution of 2 of its most popular global figures. And the US sex abuse lawsuit against Prince Andrew, which he paid to settle while admitting no wrongdoing, also left its mark. The death of Britain's Queen Elizabeth finally hands on the duties and heavy responsibility of the monarchy, a task to which she devoted her own life to maintain its popularity in the face of seismic political, social and cultural change.
Charles is now King Charles III of the United Kingdom and 14 other realms. He is the oldest monarch to accede to a lineage that goes back some 1,000 years.
Prince Charles is now king. With the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, on Thursday, Charles has finally become King of the United Kingdom and 14 other countries, including Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, ending a wait of more than 70 years, the longest by an heir in British history. His wife Camilla becomes Queen Consort, but without the sovereign's powers. Just as Queen Elizabeth became monarch the moment after her father, King George VI, died, King Charles II took over as the role of British monarch immediately. King Charles, the oldest person to ever assume the British throne, has been preparing for the crown his entire life. Unlike his mother, who refused to publicly discuss her views, Charles has delivered speeches and written articles on issues close to his heart, such as climate change and green energy. He also was the first heir not educated at home, the first to earn a university degree, and the first to grow up in the ever-intensifying glare of the media as deference to royalty faded. The eldest of Elizabeth's 4 children, Charles was the longest-serving Prince of Wales in British history. He will be succeeded by his firstborn, Prince William, Duke of Cambridge, followed by Prince William's firstborn, Prince George. Never, perhaps, an heir has been more ready for the crown. But the question is, will King Charles III be as loved as Queen Elizabeth II was? Bureau Report, India Today.
Of course there were good times, but the Queen's 70-year reign also saw its fair share of scandal. Inquiries into her tax affairs, divorces and untimely deaths amongst the numerous controversies. And between Brexit and the unseemly business of Prince Andrew's child sex allegations, last year saw the Queen face yet another annus horribilis.
Queen Elizabeth II was a very private person living in a very public life. Mired in many debates and the target of questions, some justified, some vicious, and some unwanted. Of all the scandals, the one revolving around Queen Elizabeth's daughter-in-law Princess Diana and her heir Prince Charles, and the third in their marriage, was the most vicious. The royal marriage of Prince Charles and Diana in 1981 attracted worldwide attention. It was a fairy tale wedding, but within a decade the bubble burst. There were tabloid reports of affairs, and in 1992, Charles and Diana officially announced their separation. 3 years later, Diana sat down for a tell-all solo interview with journalist Martin Bashir to talk about the immense pressure of public life and her struggles with self-harm, postpartum depression and bulimia.
Mrs. Parker Bowles was a factor in the breakdown of your marriage?
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. Yes, I came from a family.
She admitted being unfaithful to Charles. The ugliness ended abruptly in 1997 when Princess Diana was killed in a car crash in Paris. Queen Elizabeth's own marriage also was mired in controversy. In 1947, as soon as her engagement was announced to Prince Philip of Greece and Denmark, the young royal couple was in the middle of a scandal. Questions were raised of Prince Philip's family's lack of standing after being exiled from Greece, and also for his sister's marriages to Nazi-linked Germans. The Nazi link came back haunting the Queen decades and generations later in 2005. Her grandson Prince Harry sparked outrage when he went to a costume party dressed as a Nazi. Then, a 20-year-old, the prince quickly released a statement of apology. Queen Elizabeth's another big moment of embarrassment was the Megxit. When her grandson Prince Harry announced his engagement to Meghan Markle, the world applauded the British monarchy for transforming and becoming modern. Meghan was non-British, of a mixed race, and an actor. But everything went awry, and in 2020, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle announced that they will be stepping back from senior royal duties. The couple, with their just-born child Archie, moved to California in America. A year later, in March 2021, Meghan and Harry gave a tell-all interview to Oprah Winfrey about their rift with the royal family, revealing one bombshell after another. They alleged that the members of the royal family had concerns and conversations about how dark Archie's skin could be before he was born. Meghan also opened up about having suicidal thoughts. The wealth of Queen Elizabeth created an outpour of discontent in 1992, and the Prime Minister John Major announced that the Queen will pay taxes from 1993. Her wealth came back in controversy in 2021 when reports alleged that the Queen successfully lobbied the government to change the draft law in order to conceal her embarrassing private wealth from the public. The arrangement, which was concocted in the 1970s, was used in effect to create a state-backed shell corporation that placed a veil of secrecy over the Queen's private shareholdings and investments until at least 2011. The biggest scandal in the history of the royal family turned out to be Queen Elizabeth's son, Prince Andrew. He was allegedly accused of sexual assault by Virginia Giuffre, a minor, during the time of the incident. Virginia claimed that she was forced to have sexual relations with this prince when she was a minor in 3 separate geographical locations. She accused the prince and his billionaire friend Jeffrey Epstein of keeping her as a sex slave. Prince Andrew said he had no regrets about his association with Epstein. The statement received enormous public backlash. In early 2022, as the civil suit against him was still on, Andrew was stripped of his honorary military roles as well as his royal patronage. He was barred from using the title His Royal Highness in official settings. It certainly has not been all rainbows and sunshine for Queen Elizabeth II. Yet she managed to lead all the public service duties for 69 long years.
In 1997, as part of her tour to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Indian independence, the Queen visited Amritsar's Jallianwala Bagh, the controversial site of a 1919 massacre, where British troops opened fire upon thousands of unarmed civilians. And although the Queen expressed her regret at the incident, she stopped short of a full apology, which prompted a storm of protest.
Those 15 minutes that touched on Britain's dark colonial past. She removed her white pumps, stepped ahead, laid a wreath at the pink granite memorial, stood stock, still, and bowed her head. Dressed in a pale apricot India saffron, she paid silent homage in 30 seconds at Jallianwala Bagh during the 50th anniversary year of India's independence. No explicit apology though. But that's how Queen Elizabeth salved some wounds from one of the bloodiest slaughters in colonial history, which unfolded in Amritsar in 1990, when her grandfather, King George V, was the Emperor of India.
It was the Queen's third visit to India and her first to Amritsar. Punjab's reaction was ambivalent. Some staged protests, but many turned out in force to welcome the Queen.
School children lined the streets with drums and bands. Amritsar wore a festive look.
It's a very good day in Amritsar. The people of Punjab, people of Amritsar like Queen to come Amritsar.
The reception couldn't have been warmer at Darbar Sahib, the Golden Temple. Rules were relaxed. The Queen, after she had removed her shoes, was allowed to enter the sacred compound wearing white socks instead of walking barefoot.
Queen Elizabeth's 1997 visit to Amritsar marked a high point in the India-UK ties when the Buckingham Palace moved to smoothen sensitivities over Britain's colonial legacy. Harmeet Shah Singh in New Delhi for India Today.
When the Central Vista project was conceived, there were concerns about the environmental fallout. This was because hundreds of trees needed to be uprooted to make way for the project. The government's argument was that these trees would be translocated and planted elsewhere. But now it's been proved that the worries raised by experts were not without reason. Very few trees that were transplanted have survived at the NTPC Eco Park in South Delhi. From the Central Vista project alone, more than 400 trees were transported to the Badarpur area on the Delhi-Haryana border. The Forest Department report placed before the Delhi High Court tells the grim story about a transplantation project gone all wrong.
Tree transplantation has been a very challenging process, and the success rate in Delhi is practically zero, or you can call it 30% or whatever. You're just taking chances to kill these beautiful, beautiful trees that are the only natural oxygen towers for citizens right now in the most polluted city in the world, and primarily due to the climatic and soil conditions and the tree species involved and other resource requirements like water that are also in short supply. So there is just many factors that go against the tree transplantation for a city like Delhi.
An India Today team that visited the site saw for itself the results of a botched project.
Forest Research Institute, Dehradun, they have done a study over the transplantation. They have also submitted a report in Delhi High Court, and that report is saying that just 30% of plants are surviving here.
While the revamping of the Central Vista may have been necessary from the government's point of view, the loss of full-grown trees more than 100 years old could perhaps have been avoided had there been more foresight. With Kumar Kunal, Bureau Report, India Today.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Everyone's busy finding what's trending. You're busy finding out why. India Today, for those who research before reacting. Download the India Today app now. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
Co-presented by PolicyBazaar.com. Co-powered by Buy, Sell, Rent on 99acres.com. Co-powered by Galaxy Z Fold 4. In association with LIC, हर पल आपके साथ. Amrita Hospital, Faridabad. Bharti AXA Life Insurance. Do the smart thing.
Three dog attacks leave India stunned. 10-year-old boy mauled by pitbull. Bitten repeatedly in the face by a pitbull. He's got 150 stitches now on his face. Zomato delivery boy bitten by pet dog.